The first thing I heard was the pump. Whir. A pause. Whir. A mechanical sound where a heartbeat should have been. Julian sat across from me in a wheelchair, one hand pressed against the controller strapped beneath his jacket. 10 years had hollowed him out. His cheeks were grey. His lips had that blue edge I remembered from childhood, when his heart defect flared and my parents turned the entire house into a shrine around him. My adoptive mother, Eleanor, sat beside him. She did not recognize me. Not yet. That was the part that surprised me. For 13 years she had watched my face every morning while I swallowed the pills she called vitamins. She had inspected my food, my weight, my bruises, my fevers. She had spent more time monitoring my body than any mother should have spent loving it. And still, 10 years was enough. A different last name, a different haircut, a thin scar near my temple, a physician's white coat beneath a black blazer. Authority changes a face more than age does. The glass office of the National Organ Transplant Network overlooked the river. Rain streaks the windows. Behind me, the city looked grey and distant. Eleanor pushed a red folder across my desk. "Madam Director, please." Her voice cracked on the final word. I looked at the folder. Julian Mercer, 31 years old. End-stage congenital cardiomyopathy. Mechanical circulatory support. Repeated complications. Match deceased donor identified. Ethics hold pending. Emergency executive review requested. My signature line waited at the bottom. Richard, my adoptive father, was not in the room. Federal agents were speaking to him 3 floors below. Eleanor didn't know that either. "His team says he has days," she whispered. Julian shifted. The pump whirred again. He looked annoyed by his own weakness. "Some people can be near the edge of death and still find time to be arrogant." "We followed every rule," he said. I almost smiled. "Every rule?" I turned one page. "And another." Eleanor leaned forward. I turned one page. Then another. Eleanor leaned forward. "We were told your office can clear the hold. It can review it, then clear it." I looked up. Her old impatience flashed for half a second. The same impatience she used when I took too long scrubbing a pan. The same impatience she used when I vomited after my morning pills. The same impatience she used in the emergency room while surgeons were trying to keep me alive. "Why is there an ethics hold?" I asked. Julian exhaled through his nose. "A paperwork issue." "No." He frowned. I closed the folder. "It's an organ trafficking investigation." Eleanor's face changed. Barely. But I saw it. A tremor in the jaw. "That has nothing to do with Julian's current treatment, doesn't it?" "No." Julian leaned forward. "We finally have a match." His voice was thin, angry. "So you understand what it took to get here?" I looked at him. Oh, I understood. I understood better than anyone in the country. I reached for my glasses and took them off. Eleanor stared. Her eyes moved across my face, then stopped. Her lips parted. No sound. Julian looked from her to me. "What?" Eleanor's hand began shaking. "No, I said nothing." "No." Her chair scraped backward. "Clara," the name hit the room like something thrown. Julian went still. The pump kept moving. Pause. I folded my hands on the desk. "Hello, Eleanor." Julian's face emptied. For 1 second, I saw the boy he had been. Spoiled. Sick. Certain the whole world was obligated to keep him alive. That's not possible. I tilted my head. "You've said that about me before." Eleanor stood. "You died." The hospital lied to you." She covered her mouth. Julian's eyes dropped to the red folder, then back to my face, and for the first time in 10 years, fear looked good on him. And because fear is justice, because recognition is. I touched the folder. "This review isn't finished." Eleanor came around the chair. "Clara, please." I raised one hand. She stopped. "I said it isn't finished." Her eyes filled. "He's your brother." There it was, the word that had once controlled me. Brother, family, gratitude, debt, debt. I looked at Julian's chest, at the cable disappearing beneath his shirt, at the machine keeping time for a heart that had once been promised mine. Then I said, 10 years ago, I thought being adopted meant someone had chosen me. The rain struck the glass. Eleanor sat down slowly. I opened the file again, but before we discuss what happens to Julian, I looked at both of them. You should understand what happened to me. 13 years earlier, I was 5 years old and sitting on the floor of a county adoption office with a paper cup of apple juice. I remember the carpet. Blue squares, ray squares, cray squares, a stain shaped like a bird. To remember strange things when adults are deciding their future. The woman from social services crouched beside me. There's a family here to meet you. I held the cup with both hands. Do they have a dog? She smiled. I don't know. That was my main concern. Not whether they would love me, not whether they were kind. I wanted a dog. I had been in 3 temporary placements in 11 months. One family had a cat that scratched. One had 2 teenagers who ignored me. One had a woman who cried whenever I called her mum by accident. I had learned not to unpack completely. Then Richard and Eleanor Mercer walked into the room. Richard wore a navy suit. Eleanor wore pearl earrings. They looked like people from a commercial about retirement planning. Behind them stood a thin boy with dark hair, Julian, 8 years old. He looked sick, not fragile exactly, tired. His skin was pale. He breathed a little too quickly. A medical bracelet circled his wrist. Eleanor knelt in front of me. Hello, Clara. I looked at Julian. Is he your son? He is. Does he have a dog? Richard laughed. Eleanor smiled. We can talk about a dog. That was enough for me. 5-year-olds have low thresholds for hope. The first 6 months felt almost normal. My bedroom was small but mine. There was no dog, but Eleanor bought me a stuffed one. I started kindergarten. Richard took photographs on the first day. Julian spent a lot of time at hospitals. When he was home, the rules changed around him. No loud noise, no visitors if he was tired, and no food he didn't like in the kitchen because the smell bothered him. If he wanted the television, I moved. If he wanted my dessert, I gave it. At first I understood. He was sick. Sick children needed more. That was what Eleanor said. Julian's body has to work harder than yours. So I carried grocery bags. I swept. I cleaned his room. I brought him water. I learned how to read the color of his lips. Blue meant call mum. Grey meant get dad. Sweaty and dizzy meant sitting down. I became useful. Useful children are easy to keep. When I turned 6, Eleanor added 3 pills to my breakfast. Vitamins. They were bitter. I gagged. She held out water. Swallow. I don't like them. They keep you healthy. Julian was eating waffles across the table. He smirked. Don't get those pills. I looked at him. Why? He shrugged. Mom says they matter more than breakfast. As I gave him a sharp look, he went back to his waffles. At 6, that sentence meant nothing. At 16, I would remember it every morning. The pills changed over the years. Different shapes, different colors. Sometimes capsules, sometimes small white tablets. I got sick often, mouth sores, stomach problems, infections that seemed to last forever. I bruised easily. My hand shook sometimes. Whenever I complained, Eleanor took me to one doctor. Always the same doctor. Dr. Klein. He worked at a private clinic 30 minutes away. He never let me read my chart. Growth issues, he would say. Immune sensitivity. Nothing serious. Richard paid cash. I noticed that at 12. Why doesn't insurance cover me? He didn't look up from his phone. Private care is better. Julian heard. He laughed. You ask too many questions. I looked at him. He was 15 by then. More confident. His heart condition still controlled the family. But medicine had kept him stable enough to attend an expensive private school. He got a car before I got a decent report card. I got chores. Eleanor stopped calling them chores when I turned 13. She called them contribution. You should be grateful. For what? She never said directly. She didn't need to. For the room, the food, the adoption. The fact that someone had chosen me. Gratitude became a bill I could never pay off. At 14, I asked Richard if I could get a weekend job. He looked alarmed. Why? Money. You don't need money? I want my own. Eleanor entered the room. Absolutely not. Why? You'll bring germs home. I stared. From a bookstall? Julian is medically vulnerable. That ended the conversation. Everything ended with Julian. At 15, I asked to join track. No, too much strain. At 16, a teacher recommended a summer science program. No, too far away. At 17, I got accepted to a community college biology course. Eleanor hid the letter for 2 weeks college biology course. Eleanor hid the letter for 2 weeks. When I found it under a pile of mail, she said, we need you here. Need. I hated that word. but I still didn't understand it. Julian did. One night, 3 months before my 18th birthday, I found him in the kitchen at 2 in the morning. He was drinking chocolate milk straight from the carton. His face looked bad, grey. I reached for the phone. He waved me off. I'm fine. You're not. I'm fine. You're not. Mom already knows. He sat. I noticed a folder beside him. Hospital logo. I saw my name. Clara Mercer. I reached. He pulled the folder away. What's that? Nothing. That's my name. Lab work. Why do you have it? He smiled. You really don't know. Cold moved through me. Know what? He looked toward the hallway, then back at me. For once he didn't seem cruel, just fascinated. Like he had discovered I was the only person who hadn't heard a joke. Mom didn't tell you? Tell me what? His mouth opened. Then Richard's voice came from the doorway. Julian. My brother closed the folder. Richard walked in. His expression was calm. Too calm. What are you two doing? Nothing, Julian said. I pointed. Oh, why does he have my medical file? Richard looked at the folder. Compatibility testing. For what? Family records. What does that mean? Eleanor appeared behind him in a robe. Clara, go to bed. No, her face changed. Not anger. Calculation. You're tired. I'm not. Go upstairs. I looked at Julian. He wouldn't meet my eyes now. I went upstairs because 17 years of obedience is a heavy thing. The next morning, the folder was gone. My pills were waiting beside breakfast. I stared at them. Eleanor watched me. Take them. What are they? Don't start this again. Are they vitamins? Yes. Show me the bottle. Her eyes hardened. Take them. For the first time, I didn't. I left the pills on the table. Julian came in 10 minutes later. He saw them. Then me. You skipped? Yes. He frowned. Don't do that. I almost laughed. You care about my vitamins now. His face did something strange. Fear. Not for me. For himself. Like them, Clara. Why? Because Mom says so. That's not an answer. He grabbed the glass and shoved it toward me. Don't be stupid. I stood. He stood too. We stared at each other. Then he said very quietly, You're no good to anyone if you mess up the schedule. My skin went cold. What schedule? Eleanor walked in. Julian backed away. She looked at him. Then me. School. Now. That sentence stayed with me all day. No good to anyone. Schedule. The compatibility. My medical file. I started planning to leave after my 18th birthday. Nothing dramatic. I had no money, no car, no phone. They didn't monitor. But I had a teacher named Misty Math, Thomaline, who had once told me, if you ever need help applying for college, come see me. I began hiding documents. Birth certificate copy, school transcript, social security card. I photographed my pill organizer when Eleanor wasn't looking. I wrote down the markings. I didn't know what they meant. I only knew I was done swallowing mystery, for people who called it love. 2 weeks after my 18th birthday, Julian's health crashed. He spent 9 days in the hospital. When he came home, the house felt like a funeral that had forgotten to announce the body. Richard stopped sleeping. Eleanor lived on the phone. Julian stayed in bed. I heard words through doors. Function declined. Not enough time. Antibody profile. Candidate. Wait list. One afternoon, Eleanor saw me standing in the hallway. She stopped talking. Richard turned. I smiled. How is he? Eleanor's eyes moved over my face. My shoulders. Eleanor's eyes moved over my face. By Chelsea. Not like a mother. Like inventory. That night she placed new pills beside dinner. Take these. No. Her hand froze. I said no. Richard looked up. Julian stared at me from the sofa. Eleanor's voice softened. Clara, this isn't the time. For what? Attitude. What are they? Vitamins. Then show me the label. Julian muttered. Jesus. I turned. What? He looked sick, angry, tired of this. Of what? Everything being about you now? I laughed. Everything has been about you since I was 5. His eyes narrowed. You don't understand what it's like. To be sick, to wake up wondering if your heart will stop. I looked at him. For 1 second I felt guilty, old habit. Then he said, You have no idea what people would give to have what you have. I stared. What do I have? His eyes dropped to my chest. Only for a second. That was enough. I didn't sleep. The next evening, I stayed late at the library. I had arranged to speak to Miss Brill, formally the next morning. I was going to show her the pill markings, the medical file story, everything. It was raining when I left. The sidewalk shone under streetlights. I remember checking my phone. 8:17 p.m. I remember a truck engine accelerating, not nearby, toward me to now fight and accelerating, not nearby, toward me. I looked up. Headlights, too close. The pickup jumped the curb. There was no time to run. Impact does not feel like movies. There is no clean sound. There is force, confusion, a wall arriving, then the ground. My legs were somewhere beneath metal. I could not feel my left foot. I could hear someone screaming. It took me a few seconds to understand the screaming was mine. The driver got out. Baseball cap, dark jacket. He looked at me. Not shocked, not horrified. He looked toward the road, then walked away. That was when I knew it wasn't an accident. The ambulance came fast. Pain came faster. White lights, scissors cutting clothes, a paramedic asking my name. Clara. Last name? Mercer. That was the last time I willingly used it. The emergency department smelled like antiseptic and rainwater. And people moved around me. The room obey. Blood. Imaging. Voices. My legs. Everyone talked about my legs. Crush injuries. Vascular damage. Surgery. Eleanor arrived. I heard her before I saw her. Where is the attending? A nurse said something. I meet the attending surgeon now. Someone tried to calm her. She pushed past a curtain. For half a second her face appeared. She looked at me. No tears, no panic. She looked annoyed. Then a doctor pulled the curtain closed. Mrs. The Mercer, we need space. My son is at St. Vincent. This patient is unstable. I know exactly who she is. The doctor paused. Then you understand why we are treating her. No. Silence. I could hear monitors. My own breathing. Then Eleanor said, You're wasting time on her legs. My blood turned cold. The doctor spoke slowly. Excuse me? Check the chest. Check the heart. Mrs. Mercer, her heart needs to be evaluated for transplant viability. Someone dropped something metal. The sound clattered across the floor. I tried to move. A nurse leaned over me. Clara, stay still. I stared at her. No. No. And soughed the curtain. Eleanor continued. For my son is a perfect biological match. The doctor said, that is not how emergency organ donation works. We have documentation. What documentation? Private testing. My throat closed. I tried to speak. Eleanor, no sound. Maybe I said it. Maybe I only thought it. The male voice entered. Older, firm. Who ordered transplant labs on a trauma patient? The room changed. People moved. Someone said, Dr. Aris. He came to my bedside. Late 50s. Dark skin, silver at the temples. Trauma surgeon. His eyes moved across the monitor, then the lab panel. He frowned. Who is she? Clara Mercer. 18. Pedestrian versus vehicle. He looked at another sheet, then another. His expression changed. Not dramatically. Doctors learn not to advertise fear. Repeat tox. A resident asked, For what? Everything. He looked at me. Clara, can you hear me? I blinked. Good. He leaned closer. Do not move if you can help it. My eyes filled. He lowered his voice. Do they give you medication at home? I blinked again. Daily. Yes. Do you know what it is? No. His jaw tightened. Outside, Eleanor was still arguing. We have rights as her parents. Dr. Aris stood. She's 18. We adopted her. That does not make her an organ source. The room went silent. The sentence made the truth real. Organ source. Not daughter, not sister, source. I felt the room tilt. Dr. Aris looked at the repeat labs. He swore under his breath. Then he pulled the curtain fully shut. Call security. A nurse moved. Ellen shouted, Do you know who my husband is? Dr. Aris did not answer. He came back to me. Clara. I stared. What I'm about to say is going to scare you. Tears ran into my ears. Your blood contains medications you were never prescribed. My chest tightened. They can affect immune function. They can affect organ health. Someone has been medically conditioning you. I stopped breathing. He put one hand on the rail. I don't know the full reason yet. I knew. Julian's folder. Compatibility. Schedule. My chest. Pat. Julian, looking at me like he was waiting for something to mature. No, I whispered. This time sound came out, tiny. Broken. Dr. Aris heard it. I'm not going to let anyone take anything from you. Outside, Eleanor screamed. She was adopted for this. The entire bay stopped. The wreck. Eleanor realized what she'd said. Too late. Richard arrived 5 minutes later. His voice was lower. More dangerous. He asked for administration. Legal. A private transfer. Administration. Legal. A private transfer. Dr. Aris refused all of it. Then one of the nurses entered with imaging. She looked pale. Dr. Olaf. He stepped aside. They whispered. I caught fragments. Truck angle. Pelvis. Chest stable. No direct thoracic trauma. Dr. Olisic trauma. Dr. Olis looked toward the curtain. Then at me. Something settled in his face. A decision. He leaned down. Clara, listen carefully. I stared at him. There are people outside this room who are not acting like family. My pulse jumped. I need you to trust me for a few minutes. I almost laughed. Trust had become a dangerous word. He saw it. Fair. He nodded once. Then don't trust me. Watch me. That sentence saved me. Not trust me. Watch me. He explained only what I needed to know. He was going to create the appearance that my condition had worsened catastrophically while law enforcement was contacted. No details. No tricks I could follow later. Just one promise. They cannot harvest from a patient who is alive and refusing. I gripped the sheet. Julian is not your responsibility. My mother began shouting again outside. Dr. Aris looked at me. Do you want to live? I almost hated the question. Then I realized nobody in my family had ever asked me that. Yes, good. He straightened. Then stay with me. The next hour blurred. My heart rate changed. Alarms sounded. People moved. A controlled emergency became a wall of noise. Through it, I heard Eleanor demand access. I heard Richard threaten the hospital. Then I heard Dr. Aris step outside. His voice was flat. I'm sorry. Silence. Eleanor inhaled sharply. The heart, not viable. What? Severe trauma, not viable. What? Severe trauma, not usable. No. Mrs. Mercer, no. Her scream was not grief. It was rage. Pure, ugly. You don't understand. We prepared her. There it was again. Prepared. I lay still, eyes closed. Monitor sounds slowed. Voices became distant. Someone covered my face. For a few seconds, terror took everything. What if Dr. Aris was lying? What if he was part of it? What if I woke without, then his hand touched my wrist? 2 taps. The signal he had promised. Alive. Still mine. I let the darkness come. I woke cold. Very cold. Metal beneath. Me low hum. My body shook. I opened my eyes. My body shook. I opened my eyes. Dimmed light. Industrial ceiling. Shelving. A morgue holding area. For one wild second I thought I had died. Then Dr. Aris appeared above me. No. I tried to move. Pain exploded through my legs. He held my shoulder. Don't. Where? Restricted. Lower level. His voice was barely above a whisper. Hospital administration is in chaos. Your parents are being questioned. Richard's attorney is trying to move you. Move me, they still think you're dead. I stared. He nodded. I bought us hours, maybe less. My teeth chattered. Why? Because I heard your mother say she adopted you for your organs. He pulled up a chair. And because your labs make me believe she meant it. I started crying. No sound, just tears. Dr. Mouth. Just tears. Aris looked away for a moment, then back. You need surgery. My legs. Yes, will I walk? He didn't lie. I don't know. That answer was the beginning of my new life. The police investigation should have exploded everything immediately. It didn't. Richard had money. The lawyers. A private physician. Records designed to look like chronic immune treatment for a rare condition I didn't have. The truck was found abandoned. The driver vanished. Eleanor denied her words. Hospital staff had heard enough to create suspicion. But suspicion is not a conviction. Dr. Aris made a choice that would have cost him his career if exposed the wrong way. He helped me disappear, not into crime, into protection. The victim services attorney arranged emergency identity safeguards while authorities investigated. A hospital across the state accepted me under restricted access. Dr. Aris transferred my care. He stayed. Not every day, but often. My first surgery lasted hours. The second came 3 days later, then another. My left leg healed crooked before they corrected it. My right knee never became normal. For 9 months, walking meant parallel bars, sweat, humiliation, and pain. I hated physical therapy. I hated cheerful posters. I hated people saying, one more step, one more bend, one more minute. Dr. Aris never cheered. He sat in the corner reading charts. When I fell, he said, again, I wanted to kill him. One afternoon, after I threw a therapy band across the room, I signed, I can't. He looked at the board. That's different from won't. I glared. Which is it? I stood. That was his method. No inspiration. Precision. My new identity became Evelyn Aris on some protected records, though he never formally adopted me. I chose Evelyn because it was ordinary. Aris because when the paperwork clerk asked for a surname, I panicked. Dr. Aris looked horrified. Absolutely not. I wrote, too late he ate. He rubbed his face. You have terrible judgment. It was the first time I laughed after the crash. The name stayed. Clara Mercer became a closed case file. Evelyn Aris learned to walk with a slight limp. She also learned what had been in the pills. Not vitamins, not exactly one dramatic poison. A medically reckless combination of prescription drugs and immune-modulating agents that made no legitimate sense for a healthy child. Taken over years, they had damaged parts of my liver and kidneys. Why? Dr. Aris and a transplant immunologist reconstructed the pattern slowly. Julian had a rare antibody profile. My tissue compatibility was extraordinary. The Mercers had been using illegal private testing and medical manipulation to keep my body within a narrow range they believed would improve the odds of using me as a future donor. Not science, not legitimate medicine. A grotesque imitation of it. They had turned medical vocabulary into permission. I read the report once, then threw up. Dr. Aris waited outside the bathroom. When I came out, he handed me water. They were killing me slowly. Yes, so they could save him. That appears to be the intention. I sat on the floor. Why didn't anyone notice? He sat in the chair across from me. Somebody should have. That's not an answer. No. You look tired. Systems misabuse when the abuser controls the information. That sentence changed my life. I wanted Richard and Eleanor arrested. Immediately. I wanted Julian dragged from his bed. I wanted everyone who had ever handed me a pill charged. Instead, the investigation stalled. The private doctor lawyered up. Records disappeared. The truck driver crossed a border using a false identity. Money moved through shell companies. The case stayed open. Open is a cruel word. It means not solved, not closed, not unfluffed. Not closed, not enough. Julian survived, without my heart. Barely. He received a mechanical heart assist device 2 years after the crash. I learned about it from a newspaper article Dr. Aris accidentally left on a table. Mercer family. Thanks medical team for miracle. There was a photograph. Julian smiling from a hospital bed. Eleanor beside him. Richard behind him. A charity banner. They turned his survival into philanthropy. I tore the article in half. Dr. Aris found me. You left this, I know. Want me to stop bringing newspapers? No. He raised an eyebrow. I need to see them. Why? Because they think I'm gone. They do, and they're still living. He studied me. Yes. That's not fair. No. He never said life wasn't fair. I was grateful. That phrase is what comfortable people say when they want the conversation to end. Instead, he said, what are you going to do with the time you have? I looked at him. I don't know. Then learn something. I hated him again. So I did him again. So I did. Community college first. Biology. The chemistry. Statistics. I was behind, not intellectually, practically. I had spent my teenage years cleaning a house and managing Julian's symptoms instead of preparing for independence. I had no study habits outside fear, no social life. The wreck. No idea how to speak when professors asked my opinion. I failed my first organic chemistry exam. 48%. I stared at the grade for an hour, then went to Dr. Aris's apartment. He opened the door. Someone die? I held up the paper. He looked. Possibly your GPA. I started crying. He sighed. Come in. Medical school was not revenge. That matters. At first I thought it was. I imagined becoming a doctor so I could stand over people like Eleanor and say no. That fantasy got me through bad nights. It would not have gotten me through anatomy lab. What carried me was something else. I understood what it felt like when medical language was used to erase a person. I wanted to know the language better than the people who had used it against me. I wanted to understand consent, allocation, ethics, transplant law, care systems. I wanted to know where the cracks were, not to exploit them, to close them. To close them, Dr. Aris noticed before I did. "You're not going to be a surgeon," he said. I looked up from my notes. "Why, you hate operating rooms. I can learn." "You can," he sipped coffee, "but you light up when hospital council visits." I stared. "That's insulting, it's accurate." I moved toward transplant medicine, then policy, skill training, public health, medical administration. Every year I became less interested in being the hand holding a scalpel, and more interested in who wrote the rules around the room. Dr. Aris called it bureaucratic corruption of a good mind. I called it leverage. By 26, I was working inside regional transplant oversight. By 27, I had authored a national review on coercive donation. By 28, the board of the National Organ Transplant Network interviewed me for executive director. The chair asked, "Why transplant ethics?" I could have told the truth. Instead, I said, "Because consent is meaningless if the vulnerable person cannot say no safely." He paused. "That's unusually specific. Yes, I got the job. That night Dr. Aris came to dinner. I placed the appointment letter on the table. He read it, then looked at me. "Absolutely not." I smiled. "You said that about my last name, and I was right. You're proud." "No, you're terrible at lying." He sighed. "I am proud." I looked down. The words hurt more than I expected. No one had ever said them without wanting something back. I cleared my throat. "There's something else." He waited. "I want the Mercer files reopened." His face changed. "Through proper channels?" "Yes. Not because you now have access, because I now know where to send the evidence." He nodded slowly. "Good. The investigation restarted with new people. That mattered. Not my employees, not anyone I could pressure. Federal investigators, state prosecutors, transplant fraud specialists. I disclosed my identity and conflict. I recused myself from evidence handling. Then I gave them Dr. Aris's preserved toxicology records, the pill logs, the original trauma notes, witness names, the statement Eleanor screened in the ER. From there, professionals did what they were supposed to do. The money finally surfaced. A $50,000 transfer from a Mercer-controlled account to a shell company 2 days before the crash. Then cash withdrawal. Then surveillance placing the truck driver at Richard's office months earlier. The driver was found in another state under a different name. Faced with federal charges unrelated to me, he cooperated. He admitted Richard paid him to cause a crash. Thought kill her outright, his lawyer insisted. I read that line in the charging memo. Not kill her outright. As if aiming a truck at an 18-year-old contained restraint. Then Julian's messages surfaced. That was worse. He had known. Not suspected. Known. Not suspected. One message to Richard: "If we're doing this, do it before July. I am not spending another summer attached to machines." Another: "Mum says Clara skipped doses again. Fix it." Another: "I don't care how. I want this done before Europe." I read those 3 lines alone in my office. My hands went numb. For years, some small damaged part of me had protected Julian. He was a sick child, I told myself. He had grown up inside the same warped family. Maybe he didn't understand. Maybe his cruelty was fear. Maybe he never knew the full plan. The messages took that mercy away. He was 21 when he sent them. Old enough. Fully informed. He had wanted my heart before a vacation. I walked into the restroom, locked the stall, then cried so hard I had to sit on the floor. Power does not stop old grief from finding you. It only gives you a better office to hide in. 3 months later, a priority alert appeared on the network dashboard. Julian Mercer. Mechanical support complications. Urgent status. Match donor. I stared at the screen. The universe does not arrange justice. Computer systems do not know irony. A donor had died. A real person. A family somewhere just said yes to giving away parts of someone they loved. That mattered. More than Julian, more than me. The match was medically valid. Then a red compliance flag appeared. active federal investigation involving attempted organ trafficking and coercive procurement, mandatory ethics review. The case routed to my office because of its national sensitivity. I almost laughed. Then I almost vomited. I called General Counsel. I have a conflict, yes. You know? Everyone in this room knows your sealed disclosure. Good. I requested an independent ethics panel. No shortcuts, no secret deletion, no vengeance disguised as policy. The panel reviewed whether Julian's documented participation in attempted organ trafficking created eligibility concerns under the network's rules. It did, not because bad people do not deserve medicine. That is not how ethics works. The active participation in coercive organ procurement created a serious integrity issue, especially while the investigation was unresolved. His status was placed on temporary hold, pending emergency review. The donor organ moved to the next medically appropriate candidate, a different patient, a woman in Ohio. I never learned her name. That was correct. I emailed the network within 20 minutes. Then Richard. Then Julian's cardiologist. Then a senator. Then 2 lawyers. Money still believed doors were supposed to open. I refused to take the calls personally until a review meeting. Eleanor requested an in-person executive appeal. Julian demanded it. General Counsel asked if I wanted to recuse completely. I looked at the evidence summary. I will chair only the institutional portion. Are you sure? No, that's not reassuring. I'll have independent counsel in the room and the ethics panel. Yes, and federal observers. Yes. He stared at me. You thought about this for 10 years. The day before the meeting, Dr. Harris came to my office. He looked older, more grey, same eyes. He stood by the window. You can still step out. I know. You do not have to be the person who says no. And I'm not. He looked at me. The panel is. Then why were you in the room? I didn't answer. He turned. Evelyn. Only he used that name like it still belonged to a frightened student. I want them to see me. Why? Because they built their whole life on the assumption I disappeared. He was quiet. I want that assumption to end. He nodded. That's honest. Is it wrong? No. Then, but do not confuse recognition with permission. I knew what he meant. Power. A hospital office. A signature. The fantasy of holding someone else's life. I won't. He studied me. You sound disappointed. I laughed. He laughed, so maybe a little. The next morning, I took the red file from General Counsel, not because it contained a heart, because it contained rules, evidence, boundaries, everything my family had spent 13 years pretending did not apply to them. Eleanor and Julian arrived at 10. Richard was supposed to join. He never made it upstairs. Federal agents stopped him in the lobby. Now, back in the glass office, Eleanor stared at me as if the dead had returned to collect interest. Julian's pump. Word. I opened the file. You want me to save him? Eleanor nodded too quickly. Yes. I looked at Julian. Do you? His jaw tightened. Obviously. 10 years ago. Did you want me to live? Silence. Eleanor whispered. Clara. I held up one finger. Julian looked toward the door. What's the point of this? Answer. This isn't relevant. It is to me. His face hardened. For the first time, I saw the old boy at the breakfast table. Don't skip those pills. You're no good to anyone if you mess up the schedule. I was sick, he said. So, I was desperate. So, I didn't know what Dad would do. I slid one page across the desk. His message of we're doing this, do it before July. The color drained from his face. Eleanor shut her eyes. Julian stared at the words. You accessed. Private federal investigators did. He stopped. I slid the second page. Mom says Clara skipped doses again. Fix it. His fingers began shaking. The pills made me sick for 13 years. He looked up. I didn't prescribe them. You monitored them. I was a kid. You were 21 when the truck hit me. His mouth closed. The pump whirred. Eleanor reached across the desk. Please. I pulled my hand back. She froze. Don't touch me. Her face broke. I loved you. I actually laughed. It came out soft. You adopted me because I matched him. No. Then why was my compatibility testing done before the adoption was final? She said nothing. I had wondered about that for years. The reopened case answered it. A private pediatric cardiologist connected to the Mercer family had identified me through an illegal donor matching scheme buried inside charitable medical screenings at the orphanage. Richard and Eleanor did not choose a daughter. They chose tissue, the dog conversation, the stuffed animal, the photographs. All of it had been built on a lab result I never saw. Eleanor began crying. I took care of you. You kept me alive. Yes, for him. She covered her mouth. I leaned back. Do you understand the difference? Julian spoke. I am dying. I looked at him. He was. That mattered. It did not erase anything. Yes. You hate me. Yes. Use you damn thing. The yes, the honesty startled him. I continued. But this decision isn't based on hate. Then, sign. No. His eyes widened. I turned the file so he could see the ethics determination. Your emergency appeal was denied by the independent panel. Eleanor made a choking sound. Julian reached for the paper. I held it in place. The donor organ's already been allocated to the next eligible patient. No! His voice cracked. No, this review found documented evidence of your active participation in an attempted coercive organ procurement scheme. That was 10 years ago. Yes, I was young. 21, I was sick. So was I. He slammed one hand on the desk. The pump alarm chirped. Eleanor jumped. Julian! He breathed hard. I pressed the intercom. A medical team outside stepped closer, but I did not have them enter yet. I was not going to let him collapse the theatre. He steadied, then looked at me with pure hatred. You wanted this. I thought about it. Part of me did. Eleanor stared. I continued. But that part of me does not write policy. The door opened. General Counsel entered with 2 ethics officers. Behind them stood federal agents. Eleanor stood. What is this? One agent addressed her by full name. Her knees seemed to weaken. Julian looked at the badge, then at me. Richard was brought into the hallway in handcuffs. Eleanor saw him through the glass. No. The agent began reading the charges. Conspiracy, attempted murder, organ trafficking offences, medical fraud, evidence tampering. Julian whispered, Mom. It was the first time he sounded like someone's child. Eleanor lunged toward me. Not far. 2 officers stopped her. You did this. I didn't move. No. I looked at Richard beyond the glass, at Julian's medical file. At the evidence. You did. Julian's breathing became shallow. A cardiology nurse entered. He tried to wave her off. She ignored him. Good nurse. He looked at me while she checked the device. What happens now? That question carried more than medicine. I answered only the medicine. Your current support continues. Your team can pursue every lawful option available. Your eligibility can be reconsidered if and when policy allows. His face twisted. You know I don't have time. I know. The words tasted bitter. He leaned back. For 10 years I'd imagined telling him something cruel. I could have said, then hurry. Or, now you know how waiting feels, or worse. I said none of it. A donor heart is not a written. A donor patient is still a patient, even when the patient once wanted your body opened for parts. That boundary saved something in me I hadn't known was still alive. Federal agents arrested Eleanor and Richard that morning. Julian was questioned under medical supervision. Status remained on hold while the criminal case moved. The donor heart went to Ohio. I went home. No champagne, no balcony, no victory. I took off my shoes and sat on the floor beside the couch. For an hour, I listened to my refrigerator hum. Then I called Dr. Aris. He answered. Did you behave? No. How badly? I didn't kill anyone. Promising start. I laughed. Then I cried. He stayed on the phone without speaking. Wet enough. The criminal case took 14 months. Richard fought everything. Eleanor cooperated late. Thought out of conscience, out of fear, the truck driver testified. Dr. Klein, the private physician who'd managed my vitamins, surrendered his license and entered a plea agreement. His records proved years of medically unnecessary conditioning. The prosecution was careful with language. So was I. No one called me a spare heart in course as a slogan. They used dates, lab values, prescriptions, payments, messages, intent. The facts were worse than slogans. Richard had paid for the crash. Eleanor had coordinated the hospital plan. Julian had pressured them to act before his planned European trip. That detail made headlines. I hated the headlines. Dying here wanted sister's heart before vocation. People turned him into a monster in a sentence. He had been monstrous. He was also a human being dying from heart failure. Both could be true. 3 months after the board meeting, Julian's device developed another complication. He was admitted to a public teaching hospital. His attorneys petitioned repeatedly for reinstatement. Each request went through independent review. Not me. I recused permanently from his case. That was important. I did not sit at a desk deciding whether I'd rather lived. I had already been used as someone else's body. I would not use medicine as ownership in reverse. Julian died 5 months later. Not abandoned, not screaming in a hallway. His medical team treated him. They managed his pain. A nurse held his hand when Eleanor could not be there. I learned that from the case liaison. I sat in my office after everyone left. The city lights came on one by one. I expected satisfaction. None came. I remembered him at 80 years old in the adoption office, pale, tired, watching me drink apple juice. I remembered him at 15, laughing at me. At 17, hiding my file. At 21, asking our parents to hurry. People are not one age forever. He became responsible for what he chose. His illness did not excuse him. His death did not excuse him. His death did not erase what he did, and his death did not heal me. The Richard and Eleanor were convicted on the major conspiracy and attempted murder counts. Additional federal offenses related to illegal organ procurement and medical fraud increased their sentences. They lost the house. The charitable foundation collapsed under investigation. Assets were seized to compensate victims and cover penalties. People online celebrated. I stopped reading comments. Accountability had happened. Spectacle was extra. The day Eleanor was sentenced, she asked to speak to me. I almost refused. Then I went. We met through glass. Prison visiting room. She looked smaller. No pearls. No perfect hair. She picked up the phone. I did too. Clara. I had not heard her say my old name gently in decades. It still made my stomach tighten. I want you to know. She stopped. I waited more. She stopped. She stopped. We did love you. I looked at her. Don't. We did. No. Her eyes filled. You were ours. There it was. Ownership again. I leaned closer. That's the problem. She frowned. You never understood the difference between loving someone and having a claim on them. She started crying. I saved you from an orphanage. I closed my eyes. The oldest invoice. Gratitude. Debt. You adopted me. Yes, you did not buy me. Her mouth trembled. I gave you a home, and you charged me for it with my body. She looked away. I continued. 5-year-old children do not owe adults organs because they signed adoption papers. She covered her face. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the ER. You're wasting time on her legs. Check the heart. I set the phone down. She looked up. Clara. I stood. She pressed one hand to the glass. I left. I never visited Richard. Some doors do not need ceremonial closure. Dr. Aris retired the following year. He pretended not to. He kept showing up at conferences, calling residents, sending me articles with subject lines like, read this before you destroy healthcare. We created a nationally program together, not in my name, not as a revenge foundation, a real consent and coercion initiative. He had trained hospitals to identify suspicious family-controlled medication histories, forced donation pressure, trafficking risk, and vulnerable patient isolation. We expanded independent donor advocacy. No recipient family could control the evaluation of a potential living donor. And no private compatibility program could hide behind charity screening without audit. Every transplant center received new guidance on coercive family dynamics. The work was boring. Forms, training, modules, audits, data. It saved lives. That made it beautiful. One afternoon, I visited a children's hospital where the program was being implemented. A social worker brought me into a conference room. The 17-year-old girl sat there with her aunt. Her younger brother needed a kidney. The girl looked terrified. Not of surgery, of saying no. The aunt kept answering questions for her. I watched for 30 seconds. Then I asked the aunt to step outside. She resisted. Hospital policy backed me. The door closed. The girl stared at the table. I sat across from her. No one here gets to punish you for your answer. She looked up. What if he dies? The question hit me in the chest. I thought of Julian, of my own childhood, of all the ugly ways families turn illness into obligation. I said, his medical team will keep treating him, but your body is not a debt. She started crying. So did I, quietly. She chose not to donate. Her brother later received another treatment pathway while remaining under specialist care. I never learned the final outcome. That was okay. The point wasn't that everything ended happily. The point was that one girl got to answer a question nobody had allowed me to answer. Do you want this? Years after the case, a journalist asked me why I stayed in transplant medicine. We were sitting in the same glass headquarters office. Different furniture. Same river. She knew my history. Everyone did by then. Doesn't working here keep you inside the trauma? I looked out the window. Sometimes. Then why stay? I thought about the morgue, the parallel bars. My first chemistry exam, the messages from Julian. Eleanor on her knees. The donor heart that went to someone in Ohio. Is the donor heart the tending to what instead of trust? Because people think ethics is the part that slows medicine down. She waited. It's the part that keeps medicine from becoming ownership. She wrote that down. I laughed. That sounds rehearsed, was it? No. Good. After the interview, I went downstairs. There was a donor recognition wall in the lobby. No names of recipients. No ranking. Just small bronze plates for families who chose donation after loss. I never touched those plates. They belonged to grief I hadn't earned. But I stopped there often. A donor is not spare parts. A patient is not an inventory system. A child is not a backup plan. Those sentences seem obvious. They weren't obvious in my house. My family had used the language of medicine to make something evil sound practical. Matching, conditioning, timing, viability, need. The words were clean. The intention was not. 10 years after the crash, my limp was still worse in cold weather. My liver numbers had improved, but never fully normalized. My kidneys required monitoring. The damage from those years of pills lived in me. So did everything else. Scars are records too. One winter morning, Dr. Harris visited headquarters carrying a paper bag. He placed it on my desk. What is this? Breakfast. I ate. No, you drank coffee. That counts. You're a terrible doctor. I'm not a doctor anymore. Exactly. He opened the bag. Waffles. I stared. He opened the bag. Waffles. I stared. He noticed. Problem? Julian. Breakfast table. Don't skip those pills. I almost told him. Instead, I took one. Dr. Harris poured syrup. Too much. I laughed. What? Nothing. He sat across from me. For a while, we ate in silence. Then he said, Do you ever miss being Clara? I looked at him. I am Clara. He nodded. I know Evelyn too. Also know I tore off a piece of waffle. The Mercers didn't get to keep the name. He smiled. Good. Outside, snow began to fall. The river turned white around the edges. My computer chimed an ethics alert. A living donor case. Potential coercion. I opened it. A 24-year-old man. His father needed a liver transplant. Family pressure documented. Independent review requested. Daphne Runt review requested. Aris looked at the screen. Going to work? Yes. He stood. Try not to terrify anyone. No promises. He put on his coat. At the door he turned. Clara. I looked up. I'm glad you lived. Simple. No lesson. No speech. My throat tightened. Me too. He left. Simple. No sesh. He left. I sat alone for a minute, then opened the case. Years ago, Eleanor told a surgeon my legs were a waste of time because she wanted what was inside my chest. She thought the most valuable part of me was an organ that could be removed. Richard thought adoption gave him ownership. Julian thought his fear gave him priority. They were all wrong. The most valuable thing they failed to take was not my heart. It was the right to decide what happened to it. And now I spent my life making sure other people kept that right too.